So this is the minder. These are patsies. Patsies are people who are lured into doing something, and they don't know why they're doing it, and they don't suss out what dreadful fate is awaiting them. The role of patsies is to take the blame. Right? They have to take the blame. Take the blame, bumped off, they shut up. And patsies need minders. A minder is someone who reassures them that they're doing the right thing. Okay? If you remember the Muttalab story from Christmas before last, Muttalab from Amsterdam, very clueless young man who was ushered onto an aeroplane, didn't even have a passport, and he had some smart minder next to him who did all the talking and got him on, and he supposedly let a bomb off. So he obviously had a minder looking after him. So it's important to understand that when these people lured in this case, the Jaguar is a symbol of the British establishment, isn't it? Nobody's ever going to believe an Al-Qaeda operative is driving a Jaguar, are they? You know. So what does this guy do with the Jaguar? Is it Peter Power? That's what I was wondering. Did Peter Power have a Jaguar in 2005? It's quite likely when the CCTV switched off, the guy got out from the Jaguar and gave them the rucksacks. These bulky rucksacks they were, photographed with, supposedly taken up to London, and that was part of the rehearsal. The Nissan Micra they drove down in was very, very small. Lads plus rucksacks plus a whole lot of nail bombs would never have fitted into that little Nissan Micra. So it's quite likely they were given the rucksacks at that point, and then after that they then walk into the main station at 20 minutes past. I needn't go into perhaps all the complicated details, but over the years they've released various timed CCTV things, Luton, which don't add up at all together. You simply cannot put the different stories together because there've been, as it were, different storytellers who've had to retell the story, and their stories don't gel together. For example, at 7:15, there was one of them, Lindsay, coming out of that entrance of Luton Station without his rucksack. So we would have to go back, and so that can't be reconciled with all the other bits of the story. The government story is now, after 7:21, they went into the Luton Station and then they caught at 7:25. They claimed to have a whole sequence of CCTV timed, showing that they're down at the platform at about 7:22. And then they get on at 7:25. Okay, very funny. But hang on, how come for a whole year all the government and all the Metropolitan Police were saying they caught the 7:40, if actually they got all this totally clear CCTV showing that they were down there at 7:22? So that's a clearly impossible story that they're trying to make up. Okay, so the different bits of CCTV released don't really add up, and the moral is that if you want people to believe you, you should release the CCTV at once and not hang on to it for 3 years. Okay. For example, they kept claiming that their big Eureka breakthrough was on the 11th of July when they saw the CCTV at King's Cross of the 4 of them wearing rucksacks and stuff. And this was the big story. Oh, why not police clever? And the 12th, they're up in Leeds sort of blowing up doors and walls and stuff, controlled demolitions. And people puzzle, well, hang on, if this was so crucial, why can't you show it to us, you know? So for 3 years, they hung on, nobody could see this alleged important King's Cross photograph which they had, CCTV. And I've suggested to you that they were not lying in saying that they'd had that. The problem was there were only 3 of them there, and they were too late, damn sight too late. So when they did release it at the Kingston trial, it was totally blurred. Dark, blurred, and you would not be able to recognise anyone at all on that. So there's loads of respects in which the government claimed to identify, where it identified the lads as impossible. For example, it kept saying, oh, we identified Hasib Hussain, who's one first, from his driving licence. They claimed that his driving licence was present. He was supposed to be on the Tavistock Square bus. But excuse me, Hasib Hussain was taking driving lessons from his father, because I had some lessons from his father telling me about stuff, and he hadn't got a driving licence. So there are various respects in which the identification is impossible, but especially the aspect of these very dodgy CCTV pictures. Okay, now we get the lads, 3 of them, up at King's Cross Station, and from the inquest there's a nice last glimpse of Jermaine Lindsay, which I'd just like to describe to you. So I'm saying there's a lot of quite genuine evidence that's come out of the inquest, totally genuine witnesses giving genuine evidence, okay? And one of them is an Indian fellow who was a guard up by the ticket barrier at King's Cross, okay? And he recognised Jermaine Lindsay from the pictures afterwards. He says, yeah, that fellow, he came up to me, I remember him. And he said, I've got something really important to tell to the deputy manager of the station. Can you please get the deputy manager of the station? And the guy said, look, we're all really busy now because of this lockdown, security lockdown that's going on at the station. Won't I do? Can't you tell it to me? And this guy who recognised him said, no, look, this is really important. I've got to see this superior officer of yours. Now, note the reply which the guard gave to him because of this security lockdown. Now, what on earth was that? This is before the bombs had gone off, and I'm not told the exact time, might have been 8:45, for example. Bombs went off at 10 to 9, okay? Bombs all went off within 50 seconds of each other, 3 bombs, synchronised blast, 10 to 9. What was that guard replying, meaning, that security? Well, this looks like being part of Peter Power's terror drill, but he described at the inquest how police were teaming in to King's Cross Station and a whole lot of operations to control the crowds were going on before the bomb went off. So it's very important that we understand this part of the inquest because Peter Power tried to make out that his security drill was just a desktop thing. Initially, in Peter Power's initial report, or some of the early reports, he said, look, as if there are people on the station, on the platforms, and we've got megaphones, we're telling the crowds, and his account graphically described how he had to go from a virtual story into real time, make the transition into real time, okay? As if they were part of a real world event. And this is part of the mystery that obviously the establishment wants to hush up. To what extent Peter Power's terror drill was out there on the street and on the underground. Well, it looks very much as if what was happening at King's Cross then was a security drill with a whole lot of police coming in and people wondering what all these police were doing. And I would say that Jermaine Lindsay, saw all this going on. He thought, hang on, this is not usual. What on earth is going on? And a horrible suspicion started to dawn on him, right? He'd been told to come to London for a terror drill, and he saw all this stuff happening. And he wondered what was going on, and he wanted, therefore, to put this to the senior management at King's Cross. He said he got an important message. So eventually the guard did go off and get the fellow, came back, and by that time Lindsay had gone. So that's the last glimpse we ever get of Jermaine Lindsay. Yes?
Excuse me, who's Lindsay?
Thank you. Jermaine Lindsay is one of the 4 lads accused of doing the terror bombing, and he knew the others.
He's not Pakistani, he's not
No, he was Caribbean, wasn't he? I think his parents were a bit Caribbean. The others were Pakistani, the other 3. Yes, thank you for that question. But his people who knew him said he was a very moral fellow and calm, had a calm, tranquilizing influence on those around him. And wouldn't easily, his friends didn't easily think he'd be brainwashed into believing anything because of the his sort of mental judgment. I didn't think he could be easily hoodwinked into believing anything of that kind. And I wonder, I feel this is part of his sort of conscience telling him that he had to do something to tell the station manager. Anyway, that's the last we see of Jermaine Lindsay.